Money, it's one of the first things you think about when you wake up, and one of the last things that lingers in your mind before you fall asleep. It shapes your decisions in ways you rarely notice: where you live, what you eat, who you spend time with, how you define success, and sometimes even how you define yourself. You don't just earn money. You plan your life around it. You sacrifice time for it, energy for it, years of your life in exchange for it. And yet, for something so central to human existence, so few people ever stop to ask a simple question: what is money? Really? Because the answer isn't as straightforward as it seems. Money is not wealth. It's not happiness. It's not fulfillment. And it's definitely not freedom. Money is a representation, a symbol, a shared belief system that only works because billions of people agree that it does. It has no intrinsic meaning, no inherent value. It only has power because we give it power, because we trust it, because we organize society around it. But that trust, that invisible agreement, is fragile. And once you begin to question it, even slightly, the illusion starts to shift. You begin to see that money isn't just a tool for exchange. It's a structure, a system, one that influences behavior, shapes decisions, and quietly directs the flow of human life. And the deeper you look, the more you realize money isn't just something you use. It's something that uses you. Before money ever existed, before numbers, before wages, before bank accounts, there was only direct exchange. Human beings relied on barter, a system built on immediate needs and tangible value. If you had something and someone else needed it, you could trade. A farmer exchanges rice for tools, a fisherman trades his catch for clothing, a builder offers shelter in return for food. At its core, barter was simple, human, transparent. Value was visible, physical, undeniable. But beneath that simplicity, there was a problem, a limitation that quietly restricted the growth of entire societies. Because trade only works when both people want exactly what the other has at the same time. If you have fish, but I don't need fish, the exchange fails. If I need your tools, but you don't need what I offer, the system breaks down. This is what economists call the double coincidence of wants. And it created friction. Friction that slowed progress, limited specialization, and constrained the expansion of communities. Because without an efficient way to exchange value, complex economies cannot exist. So humanity faced a challenge, not a physical one, but a conceptual one. How do you represent value in a way that everyone can understand, trust, and accept? That question would lead to one of the most powerful inventions in human history. Not a machine, not a weapon, but an idea, an abstraction, something that doesn't hold value itself, but represents it. And that idea would change everything. Money didn't emerge all at once. It evolved slowly across cultures and civilizations. Different societies experimented with different forms of value. Shells in coastal regions, salt in ancient trade routes, livestock in agrarian communities, precious metals in expanding empires. Each form had something in common. They were scarce, recognizable, difficult to replicate, but most importantly, they were trusted. Because trust is the foundation of money. Not utility, not beauty, not even rarity alone, but belief. Gold eventually became dominant, not because it was the most useful, but because it was the most trusted. It didn't corrode, it was divisible, it was portable, but more than anything, people believed in it. And that belief made it powerful. Because money is not value itself, it is a representation of value, a shared agreement, a collective illusion that allows strangers to cooperate at scale. When you accept money, you're not accepting the object, you're accepting the idea behind it. The belief that someone else, somewhere, will also accept it. And that belief creates a chain, a network of trust that connects millions, even billions, of people. But here's the critical part. The moment that trust disappears, money collapses. It becomes what it always was underneath, just material, just symbols, just empty representation. So when you hold money, you're not holding wealth, you're holding trust. As societies grew larger, trade became more complex, carrying gold became impractical, dangerous, heavy, difficult to transport across long distances. So people began to rely on a new system. They entrusted their gold to institutions in exchange for paper, receipts, certificates that represented ownership. At first, this was simply about convenience. You deposit your gold and withdraw it when needed. But over time, something subtle began to change. People stopped redeeming their gold. They started using the paper itself as money because it was easier, faster, more efficient. And in that moment, control shifted, not from gold, but from those who held it to those who stored it, the banks. Because now, they didn't just safeguard wealth, they mediated access to it. They became the gatekeepers. And with that role came an opportunity that would reshape the entire financial system. Because once people trusted the paper more than the gold itself, the question was no longer, how much gold do we have, but rather, how much money can we create from that trust? This is where money begins to detach from reality, where the system becomes complex enough that most people stop questioning it. It's called fractional reserve banking, a term that sounds technical, distant, almost irrelevant, but it affects every aspect of your financial life. When you deposit money in a bank, you might assume it stays there, safe, stored, waiting, but that's not what happens. The bank keeps only a fraction of it in reserve. The rest is loaned out, and that loan doesn't just transfer money, it creates new money. Because when that loan is deposited elsewhere, it becomes part of the system again. And then it's loaned again, and again, and again, like a ripple expanding outward. Money multiplies, not from production, not from real value, but from debt, which means something most people never realize. The majority of money in the modern world was never physically created. It exists because someone, somewhere, borrowed it. If most money is created through lending, then money and debt are inseparable. Two sides of the same system. Every mortgage creates money. Every business loan creates money. Every swipe of a credit card expands the supply. But there's a condition attached to all of it. Interest. You don't just repay what was created, you repay more. And that extra amount was never created in the first place. So where does it come from? It has to be borrowed again, which means the system requires continuous expansion. More loans, more debt, more creation, because without it, there isn't enough money in circulation to pay back what already exists. This creates a cycle, a dependency, where stability depends on growth, and growth depends on debt. And once you see that, you begin to understand something deeper. The system isn't broken. It's functioning exactly as designed. Inflation is often explained simply. Prices go up, but the reality is more subtle, more profound. Inflation isn't just about prices, it's about value. When new money enters the system, it doesn't create new goods. It doesn't increase real value. It simply spreads existing value across more units, which means each unit is worth less. Your money doesn't disappear, it just weakens, quietly, gradually, over time, and because it happens slowly, most people accept it, normalize it, but its effects are cumulative, relentless. What you could afford 10 years ago now requires more effort, more time, more sacrifice, and this isn't accidental. It's a structural outcome of how money is created. Which means inflation isn't just an economic phenomenon, it's a hidden force shaping your life. At the center of this system are institutions that operate beyond everyday visibility. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank, They don't just print money, they regulate its flow. They influence interest rates, which determine the cost of borrowing. They manage liquidity, which affects how much money moves through the economy. And through these mechanisms, they guide economic activity, not directly, but powerfully. A small adjustment can ripple through entire markets. A policy change can influence millions of lives, jobs, businesses, opportunities, all connected to decisions made at the top, often unseen, rarely understood, but deeply impactful. Money doesn't enter the system evenly. It flows in stages, and those closest to its creation benefit the most. Banks, financial institutions, large corporations, they receive new money first, before it spreads, before prices adjust, before inflation takes hold. This gives them an advantage, access to capital at its highest value. By the time that money reaches everyday people, its purchasing power has already shifted. This is known as the Cantillon effect, a mechanism that quietly redistributes wealth, not through force, but through timing. And over time, this creates divergence, a widening gap between those who understand the system and those who are affected by it. The system doesn't just operate externally, it operates internally, through belief, through conditioning. From an early age, you're given a framework. Work hard, earn money, save it. But what's missing is understanding. So you follow the path without questioning the structure behind it. You trade time for income. You measure progress through accumulation. But if the system itself is shifting, if money is constantly losing value, then effort alone isn't enough. And that realization can be uncomfortable, because it challenges everything you were taught. Now, money is transforming again, from physical to digital, from tangible to abstract. Most transactions no longer involve cash. They exist as data, entries in databases, numbers moving across networks, instantly, seamlessly, globally. But this shift changes more than convenience. It changes control, because digital systems can be monitored, tracked, analyzed, and potentially restricted. Money becomes programmable, conditional, and that introduces a new dimension to the system, one where access itself can be influenced. And in that world, understanding money becomes even more important. Money is not evil, but it is not neutral either. It is a system, a construct, a reflection of human agreement and institutional design. It can empower or constrain, create opportunity or dependency. But the most important shift is awareness, because once you understand how money works, you stop chasing it blindly. You begin to see patterns, structures, incentives, and that changes your relationship with it, because in the end, money is not the ultimate goal. Understanding is.